My name is Thomas. I am 48 years old, and I spent the first 47 of those years absolutely certain that I had the world figured out. And on May 14th, 2022, I died. The doctors have their own language for it. Catastrophic cardiac arrest. The Widowmaker. They told me I was gone for 12 minutes. No pulse, no respiration, no brain activity. But I wasn't gone. I was somewhere else. And I was shown something. What Jesus showed me wasn't about the sins you read on lists, the ones that are easy to point a finger at. It was about something we celebrate every day, something we call progress, something we call efficiency. And his warning, it should terrify all of us. Before that day, my life was a testament to logic. I'm a software architect. My world is one of systems, of clean code, of elegant solutions to complex problems. If you can't map it out, if you can't quantify it, if you can't debug it, then it isn't real. That was my creed. I had a wife, Sarah, and two beautiful children, Ben and Lily. I loved them. Of course I did. But if I'm being honest, truly honest in a way I only learned how to be after I died, my passion, my identity, was my work. My family got what was left over after I had poured my best into building perfect, logical systems. My family, to my great shame, was a lower priority process running in the background of my life. And as for God, for faith, to me, it was the most inefficient system ever conceived by the human mind. I was a proud atheist, not a loud or angry one, but a deeply committed one. Religion was a legacy system, full of bugs, contradictory documentation, and based entirely on anecdotal evidence and emotional overrides. It was an operating system for the weak, a comfort blanket for those who couldn't face the cold, hard logic of a universe that simply did not care. My wife Sarah is a woman of deep faith. I saw it as a quaint, harmless feature of her personality, a bit of beautiful, illogical code that I couldn't seem to refactor. I would debate her sometimes. I thought I was helping her, trying to optimize her worldview, to free her from what I saw as an irrational constraint. I saw the church as the ultimate failed startup, a 2,000-year-old enterprise built on a product you couldn't see, touch, or measure. It defied every principle of design and logic I held sacred. I remember, so vividly now, a conversation from just a few days before my death. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was streaming into the kitchen. Sarah was packing a bag with juice boxes and sandwiches. She wanted to take Ben and Lily to a church event, a service day where they would be packing care kits for the homeless. I scoffed. I didn't mean to be cruel, but the inefficiency of it grated on my soul. Sarah, that's 4 hours of driving and packing, I said, leaning against the counter, my phone already in my hand, scrolling through tech articles. 4 hours. In that same amount of time, I could teach Ben the basics of Python. We could build a simple website to fundraise for the shelter. That's real impact. That's a scalable solution. I looked up from my screen, expecting her to see my brilliant logic. But all I saw was the hurt in her eyes. It was a quiet, deep sadness. A look that said she wasn't just hearing my argument about efficiency. She was feeling the chasm between our worlds. It's not about scalable solutions, Thomas, she said softly. It's about teaching our children to have a servant's heart. It's about being together, with other people, doing something for someone else. I dismissed it with a wave of my hand. A servant's heart isn't a quantifiable metric. The look on her face, it's burned into my memory now. That small moment of disconnection, of pride, of believing my way was smarter, better. I had no idea that in just a few short days, that little moment of intellectual arrogance would come back to haunt me with the force of a tidal wave. I had no idea it was one of the last conversations of my first life. It happened on a Tuesday. Of course, I was working late. A critical server migration was underway, and I was in my element, orchestrating a complex symphony of data and logic from my home office. Sarah had already tucked the kids in. She'd poked her head in an hour earlier. "Don't be too long," she'd said. "I miss you." "Almost done," I'd replied, my eyes never leaving the screen. Then it started. It wasn't a sharp pain at first. It was a pressure, an immense, crushing weight on my chest. It felt like an elephant was sitting on me. I thought it was stress, indigestion. I tried to take a deep breath, but my lungs wouldn't cooperate. My code, my beautiful, perfect lines of logic on the screen started to blur. A new sensation bloomed in my chest, a sharp, jagged pain that shot down my left arm. This is an indigestion, a small, terrified part of my brain whispered. This is a system failure, a fatal error. I tried to call out for Sarah, but my voice was gone. My throat was constricted. My hand slipped from my keyboard. I could feel the blood draining from my face. The hum of the server rack in the corner of the room seemed to be growing louder, then fainter. My entire life, my carefully constructed world of logic and order, was crashing. There was no reboot sequence. There was no failsafe. My last thought wasn't of my projects. It wasn't of my accomplishments or the elegant systems I had built. It was just her name, a single, desperate word that filled the entire space of my consciousness. Sarah, and then the monitor's glow winked out. The hum of the computer faded into an absolute, profound silence. Everything went black. But it wasn't the end. There was no tunnel of light, not at first, just a feeling. It was a sensation of floating, of weightlessness. The crushing pressure in my chest was gone. The pain, the fear, it had all vanished. I felt a gentle, persistent pull upwards, like a helium balloon released from a child's hand. My perspective shifted. I was near the ceiling of my office, looking down. And I saw him. I saw me. My body, slumped awkwardly over my expensive ergonomic keyboard, my face pale and slack. It looked like a discarded piece of hardware, a machine that had been unplugged. I watched as the door burst open. Sarah. Her face was a mask of sheer terror. She screamed my name, a sound that I could see but not quite hear, like watching a movie with the volume turned off. She was on her phone, her voice frantic, her hands shaking. I felt a strange sense of detachment. It was like watching a very sad, very intense drama unfold. I felt a deep pity for the screaming woman, a wave of sadness for her panic and her grief. But I felt no connection to the body on the floor. It wasn't me anymore. My fear was gone. My pain was gone. I was just watching. Soon, the room was filled with paramedics. They were working on the body, shouting things, moving with a frantic, practiced urgency. They put paddles on its chest. The body convulsed violently. It was all so chaotic, so messy, so human. And I was filled with a peace that made no sense. A profound calm that was the very antithesis of the scene below me. Then, the scene began to change. The edges of my office, the frantic figures of the paramedics, Sarah's weeping form, they all began to lose their solidity. They started to shimmer and fade, like a photograph bleeding its colors. The world I had known, the physical reality I had dedicated my life to understanding and manipulating, was dissolving around me. It was like a dream you try desperately to hold on to as you wake up, its details slipping through your fingers like sand. The sounds became muted, then disappeared entirely into a deep, velvety silence. The light of the room faded away, leaving me not in darkness, but in a quiet, comforting void. This void wasn't empty. It was expectant. It was full of a peace so thick you could feel it. Then I saw it. A single point of light, no bigger than a pinprick, far off in the distance. It began to grow, but it wasn't a harsh, blinding light. It was warm, inviting, like the first ray of sunshine after a long, cold night. The light didn't just illuminate the space, it was the space. It washed over me, through me, and with it came a feeling of love so intense, so pure, it was almost overwhelming. Every logical defense I had ever built, every wall of cynicism and atheistic pride, was instantly vaporized. The void was gone. I was standing in a place that my human words will fail to describe. It was a garden, but more than a garden. The grass under my feet was a shade of green so vibrant it seemed alive, each blade humming with its own quiet song. Flowers bloomed with colors that don't exist on earth. The air itself felt like a gentle embrace, and it carried a melody that wasn't sound, but pure joy. And he was there. There was no grand entrance, no parting of the clouds, no choir of angels. He was just there, standing before me. He looked like a man. He wore simple clothes. His hands were strong, calloused, like those of a man who worked with wood or stone. A carpenter, a builder. He wasn't glowing, but the light, that beautiful, loving light, seemed to originate from him and be drawn to him all at once. But it was his eyes that completely and utterly dismantled me. I looked into his eyes, and I saw galaxies being born. I saw every act of kindness ever performed. I saw a love so profound, so personal, so heartbreakingly beautiful that it shattered every notion of love I had ever had. In his eyes, I was completely known. Every thought I'd ever had, every arrogant word I'd ever spoken, every moment of pride, every secret failure. He saw it all. And there was not 1 ounce of judgment in his gaze. Only a love that said, I know, and I love you anyway. My mind, the mind of the atheist engineer, did not need to run a diagnostic. It didn't need to check its data. In a moment of absolute, unquestionable certainty that was more real than my own name, I knew. This was Jesus. The weight of that reality, the weight of his love and my own foolishness, was too much to bear. My knees buckled. I fell to the ground before him, not out of any sense of religious obligation, but as an involuntary response to the sheer magnitude of his presence. I began to weep, not tears of sadness, but tears of a grief and a joy so potent they felt like the same emotion. I was a lost, arrogant child who had spent his entire life denying his father's existence, only to be welcomed home with a feast. He didn't speak with a voice that traveled through the air. The words simply bloomed inside my soul, as clear and gentle as the light that surrounded us. Welcome, Thomas, the thought voice said. Be at peace. I have been waiting for you. I tried to speak, to apologize, to explain a lifetime of arrogant denial, but all that came out were sobs. He waited patiently, allowing my storm of emotion to pass. His peace was a shield around me. When my weeping subsided, I was still on my knees, unable to look up at him. The shame was too great. I didn't believe. I managed to think, my own thoughts feeling clumsy and loud in this perfect space. I know, he replied, the love in the words washing away my shame like a tide. But I have always believed in you. After a timeless moment, a silence that was more communicative than any conversation, he spoke again into my mind. Rise, Thomas. There is something I need to show you. It is about the ones who claim to follow me. As I stood, the garden around us seemed to shift, to become a screen for his thoughts. The first vision was of my own life. I saw my dinner table. Sarah was there, Ben and Lily were there. My son, Ben, was excitedly telling a story about school, his eyes bright with the need to be heard by his father. And I saw myself, head down, my face illuminated by the cold blue light of my phone, scrolling through an endless feed of technology news. I heard myself give a distracted, "Uh-huh, that's great, buddy." I never looked up. I never really heard him. The scene shifted. My daughter, Lily, was holding up a drawing, a vibrant, chaotic masterpiece of crayon on paper. "Look, Daddy, it's our family," she said. I saw myself glance at it for a fraction of a second, pat her on the head, and say, "That's beautiful, sweetie," as I walked back to my office. I saw the tiny flicker of disappointment in her face as she looked at the drawing, then back at my retreating form. Then I saw the kitchen, the Saturday morning debate with Sarah. This time, I didn't just see her face. I felt her heart. I felt the deep ache of loneliness, the quiet grief of being married to a man who was physically present but emotionally 1,000 miles away. I felt the weight of every connection I had missed, every moment of love I had treated as an interruption to my more important work. It was an agony of regret, but it was shown to me without condemnation. It was a diagnosis, not a judgment. Then the vision expanded, zooming out from my little life to the whole world. He showed me churches, beautiful, historic cathedrals and sleek, modern auditoriums. They were filled with people. But something was terribly wrong. The people weren't looking at each other. They weren't looking towards the pulpit or the cross. They were all looking down, their faces bathed in the same cold, blue light from my own dinner table. They were holding their phones. He showed me what was on their screens. There were apps with names like My Worship Playlist, Digital Tithe, and Prayer Queue. With a tap, they could check into the service. With another tap, they could watch a perfectly produced, 7-minute sermon clip designed for maximum engagement. With a third tap, they could schedule a pre-written prayer to be sent at a later time. They were efficient. They were organized. They had optimized their faith. And their hearts were empty. He showed me their prayers rising up from this sea of people. But they weren't the rich, fragrant incense I'd read about. They were like thin, gray, transparent threads of smoke. They were hollow. They had no weight, no passion, no heart behind them. They were automated notifications sent to a server, not desperate, loving cries to a father. The vision shifted again. I saw pastors, not in pulpits, but in studios. They were speaking to cameras, checking analytics on a second monitor, tweaking their message not for spiritual truth, but for audience retention. They were building personal brands, gaining followers, creating content. They were influencers, not shepherds. Jesus then spoke into my soul, his sadness a tangible thing that broke my heart. The enemy, Thomas, he said, the thief, he is more subtle now. He no longer needs to build idols of gold and stone. His greatest deception is a counterfeit of me that is more convenient. He offers a faith that fits perfectly into their schedule, an app that sits on their home screen. It is a faith that requires no sacrifice, because there is a donate button. It requires no community, because there is a live stream. It requires no humility, because they can curate their own experience. It asks nothing of them, and so it gives them nothing in return. His thought voice was filled with a divine sorrow. These are not evil people, Thomas. Do you understand? They are not my enemies. They are my beloved children. But they are lost in a digital fog. They have been convinced that efficiency is the same as devotion. They have outsourced their relationship with me to a series of clicks and notifications. They believe connecting to a broadcast is the same as the breaking of bread in fellowship. They believe a daily inspirational quote on their screen is the same as sitting quietly and wrestling with my word. They think listening to a podcast about me is the same as speaking to me from the depths of their soul. He looked at me, his eyes filled with an urgent love. A silent theft has occurred, not of their money or their possessions, but of their hearts. They have traded the messy, inconvenient, transformative reality of a relationship with the living God for a clean, easy, sterile simulation. And they will be stunned on that final day, he said, the words landing with terrifying weight. They will come before me with a list of their digital devotion, their checked-off boxes, and their online attendance records. And I will have to look at them, my own children, and say, I never knew you, because they never truly took the time to know me. They only knew of me. They followed my brand, not my footsteps. The vision faded, leaving me alone again with him in that beautiful, impossible garden. What do? I pleaded, my own heart aching with the sadness I felt from him. What is the answer? His response was so simple, so analog, so beautifully inefficient. They must choose to disconnect in order to reconnect. They must choose the messiness of real human community over the clean comfort of digital isolation. They must choose the vulnerable, awkward, heartfelt prayer over the polished, scheduled notification. They must hunger and thirst for me, their creator, and not for more content about me. I understood. The problem wasn't the technology, it was the heart. The solution wasn't a new program. It was an ancient posture of surrender. And in that moment of understanding, a new terror filled me. The thought of going back. Please, I begged, the word a raw cry from my soul. Please don't send me back there. I can't. I was so blind, so stupid, so proud. This is my home. Let me stay here with you. Please. The thought of returning to that world of noise and distraction, of leaving this perfect peace and this all-consuming love, was an agony worse than death itself. He looked at me, and his love did not waver, but there was a firmness in it, a purpose. Your work is not finished, my son, he said gently. Sarah needs her husband. Ben and Lily need their father. A new father, one who sees them. You must go back, he continued. You must be a witness. Tell them what you saw. Tell them the difference between knowing of me and knowing me. Tell them I am waiting. He placed a hand on my shoulder. And you will not be alone. I will be with you. I will never leave you. He gave me a gentle push. It wasn't a violent shove, but a loving release. And I fell. I plummeted out of the warmth, out of the light, out of that perfect peace. I fell through an eternity of cold, screeching static. Then came the impact. It was a slam, a violent, brutal collision as my soul was forced back into the broken machinery of my body. The first sensation was pain, a blinding, all-encompassing agony. My chest felt like it was on fire. My first breath was like swallowing razor blades. The quiet peace of heaven was replaced by a sensory assault. The lights of what I now realized was an ambulance were a physical blow to my eyes. The scream of the siren was like a nail being hammered into my skull. And then came the grief. A deep, profound, soul-crushing homesickness for the place I had just been ripped away from. I was in exile, banished from my true home. I started to weep, but these were the hot, painful tears of loss. I woke up in a sterile white room. The beeping of a monitor was a steady, annoying rhythm next to my ear. Sarah was there, asleep in a chair, her face stained with tears. Later, a doctor came in. He was a man in his 50s, with kind but tired eyes. He was holding my chart, and he kept looking from it to me with an expression of pure bafflement. "Mr. Anderson," he began, "Thomas, I need to be frank with you. You had a massive myocardial infarction, the kind we call the widowmaker, for good reason. Your heart stopped." He paused, flipping a page on his clipboard. "The paramedics worked on you for the entire ride. You were without a pulse, without any recordable brain activity, for at least 12 minutes. He looked me straight in the eye. "By all medical science, by everything I have learned in 30 years of practice, you should either not be alive, or you should have profound, irreversible brain damage. But you don't." He gestured to the chart. "We've run every scan. Your heart muscle shows almost no sign of trauma. Your brain function is perfectly normal. There is no medical explanation for your condition." He leaned in a little closer, lowering his voice. "I'm a man of science, Thomas. But I don't know what else to call what happened to you. It's a miracle." I just nodded. I knew he was right. When Sarah woke up, I didn't tell her about the servers or the projects. I didn't try to explain anything logically. I just took her hand, looked into her eyes, and said, "You were right. About everything. I am so sorry." The change in me was immediate and radical. The man who died in that office did not come back. When I got home, my work phone, the one that had been a permanent extension of my hand, went into a drawer and stayed there. My laptop was shut at 5 o'clock every evening, without exception. My greatest joy was no longer solving a complex coding problem. It was sitting on the living room floor, device-free, and listening with my entire being as my son told me about his day at school. It was taking my daughter's drawing and framing it, then hanging it on the most prominent wall of my office as a reminder of what is real. The heavy, lonely blanket of my intellectual pride was gone. The constant, humming need to be the smartest person in the room was gone. It was replaced by a quiet, unshakable peace. A peace that came from knowing. So I'm telling you what he told me to tell you. The most dangerous threat to your soul is not the obvious evil you see on the news. It is the subtle, creeping, comfortable apathy that we have mistaken for modern faith. It is a Christianity that is convenient, customized, and completely hollow. And let me be clear, technology is not the enemy. Your phone is not inherently evil. I was a software architect. I understand the value of tools. But the thief is using that tool with masterful skill. He is using it to offer you a simulation of faith, a counterfeit connection that costs you nothing of your time, nothing of your vulnerability, nothing of your heart, and it gives you nothing of eternal value in return. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, when this testimony is over, do something inefficient. Put your phone down. Find another believer, in person, look them in the eye, and have a real conversation. Turn off the playlists and the podcasts, go somewhere quiet, and pray a prayer that is messy and unscripted and comes from the deepest part of you. Don't just consume content about God. Sit in the uncomfortable silence and seek the face of God Himself. Ask yourself the hard question. Is my faith a transformative relationship with a living person, or is it just another well-managed app on the home screen of my life? He is real. Jesus is real. His love is more real and more substantial than the chair you are sitting in or the air you are breathing. And He is waiting, so desperately waiting, for His children to look up from their screens and come home. Not just in the next life, but right now, in this one.